don't get me wrong, this has been great. It's been great, but it's been a lot of handshakes, a lot of suits, a lot of speeches and senator meetings. And I just want to do the job.
This is the job, John.
Yeah. I think what the show explores is what everybody, regardless of what your political affiliation is, what everybody's version of wrong and right is. And that what Marvel does so well is they don't always take what literally was in the comics. They amalgamize a lot of it and use it to inform their characters' decision-making process, and not so much literally as it is figuratively. And what this series does so well is takes things into question like that, but in different ways, where the Falcon has his own version of what Captain America should be, John Walker has his own version of what Captain America should be, and Bucky has his own version of what Captain America should be. So all of those things put together go into how these people are making decisions based on who they are as people and what their identity, how they're going to have to work through their identities.
With that said, what do you think your character believes right is when it comes to being Captain America?
I think right now what he believes is that any and all means to get the job done, to defeat what he believes is evil. He has been a Marine. Marines, we don't always hear about everything that happens because some of it's pretty bad. And that what we have celebrated for so long doesn't mean the same thing to a Marine who's experienced it. We tend to just celebrate our military sometimes without really trying to understand what they went through to be celebrated like that. And it's some pretty bad moments in their life to get those gold stars and awards. So, it's kind of like they had to go through some pretty disastrous stuff that would be very affecting moving on in their life. And how do you deal with that? And that's where John is now in terms of his version of right and wrong has been affected by that lifestyle.
But I think it's time you know the truth. S.H.I.E.L.D. is not what we thought it was. It's been taken over by Hydra. And I know I'm asking a lot. But the price of freedom is high. It always has been. And it's a price I'm willing to pay. And if I'm the only one, then so be it. But I'm willing to bet I'm not.
Did you write that down first? Or was it off the top of your head?
It's interesting that he seems to be kind of the inverse of Captain America, who also was very patriotic in the beginning, but then became very disillusioned with America and kind of the authority he was answering. But then John Walker is saying he is the government. Do you think that there's like an interesting contrast between the two characters?
Yeah, I think it's the interesting contrast of what Steve's understanding of what Captain America came to be was an evolving thing. It started off one way and it ended one way, and they did a really interesting job of how his own idea of what it was evolved. They went through civil wars and all kinds of crazy stuff, and came out on the other end. And John is sort of at the beginning of that journey of what does this mean to be this? It's and realizing like of course it's not what you thought it was going to be. It's nothing like you thought it was going to be. It's going to take on its own version because that's what we're all doing here. We're living our own version of an existence.
I believe I saw in a recent news story that you mentioned that you weren't particularly familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe prior to joining the series. So I'm curious if you talked to your dad, Kurt, about joining, since he had all that experience with Guardians too.
He had less experience than I did with the Marvel Cinematic Universe when he joined on. And I gotta be honest, I don't know if he has much more experience beyond Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I know he's seen a couple, but it wasn't something that we had talked about very much. I had spoke to James Gunn about doing this part because I become friendly with James. My wife did a movie with him that he produced. And I really trusted his sense of what Marvel could bring, and what obviously he'd been through every iteration of what Marvel was. And he said, look, if you're going to take your bet, you take it with Marvel, because they don't accept anything less than great. And when I heard that from him, it really was a vote of confidence, because I really trust James. Obviously, the proof is in the pudding. So that was sort of one of the turning points where I said, if he's saying that, then I should listen. My dad's pretty simple, and it's kind of the same, obviously, as my dad. So I listened to him.
Yeah.
It's like, if you think that the movie's good and you can be good in it, and the show is good, and that you can add some value in terms of being good to the show, then do it. If you don't think it's good, or you don't think that you can add value, if you think it's good but you don't think you're right, then it's still not a good idea to do it. So that was what kind of go into everything thinking that. And this was no different, where when I saw that, when I heard that, like, we want you for it, it was like, great, what is it? And I didn't know whether or not it was the right thing to do, to be honest. At the time, I hadn't thought about doing anything like this. And then as they explained the character to me, it sort of rolled out to let me peek behind the curtain a little bit at the character. It started to seem like something that I could actually be good at doing.
Was there anything in particular that drew you to the character, or maybe any particular comic book arcs about the character that you liked after you started researching him?
Yeah, I really liked. There was a built-in dichotomy to his personality. He's very volatile, which means that there's a lot to learn. Characters like that have a lot to learn. They have a lot to go through to get out the other side. They're very troubled, and troubled characters are obviously they're rich with material to be able to play. They can go a lot of different directions. And the art that I really looked at a lot was, I really liked the way that they drew him, because he's different. He carries himself differently. It's not so much the regal posture of what Captain America is. So as Captain America, it's sort of, morphing from someone who's trying to be someone that he might not be, into someone that he more hopefully is, and settle into that position. So yeah, I utilized a lot of the art to inform that.